never be a fool. But the Bitcoin 10K break, I had to realize mistake and buy. I only buy the top, FOMO and then we drop. Everyone else is the best traders in the world. Where will we go? Can you tell me, sir, please? 'Cause I only buy the top, FOMO and then we drop. And I never ever stop. Twitter can laugh it up. Everyone else is the best traders in the world. Where will we go? Can you tell me, sir, please? I only buy the top.
Hello, hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning perhaps, my friends, and welcome to the show. We're going to be talking, of course, about Bitcoin. Nice to see you. My name's Rocky.outcrop. If you're joining me for the first time, welcome here. Everybody drop a like button there, click the like button. It misses you, give it a hug. And as we can see, the prices are currently there at under $54,000. So Bitcoin's having a tough time at the moment. The lows of today are 53,715, so not that actually that far off from where we are right now. Great time to be tuning into the Bitcoin prices. Good to have you here, Trey. Good to have you here, Kevin. Nice to see you. Good to see you, Nav and Nathan. Good to see you, Rook. Good to see you, Dom. Nice to have you all here this evening, and I'm sure more folks will be joining us along the way. Thanks for hitting like there, Kevin. That's good to see that happening. So the prices, whoa, well, this is it, is it the question? The question is it time to buy the dip or not? Well, that's going to be happening right here and now. If you're asking that question, I'm sure you're thinking, how will the day close? What's our risk in it around about this area? And what are we looking at overall? What's led to this price action having happened? And maybe you're having a look across some other cryptocurrency markets as well. So on top of just looking at Bitcoin here, we'll take a look at Ethereum, Chainlink, Tezos, whatever. We'll see what people say in the chat. So get the chat on there, everybody. It's good to see it working down below here as well, so that's nice to read along with the chat on screen. And what I have up at the minute here is Bitcoin USD. This is the 4-hour time frame, and there's a few different key areas to be aware of, and one of which of course was that 54,500 zone that we saw the prices actually cracking from that 55k area all the way down through here down to that 53,700. Now we're coming back up above 54,000, giving us that opportunity to perhaps manage our risk accordingly if we want to in and around about this zone here for us. So that'll be interesting to see how this could perhaps play out in the near future. What would it mean if we were to get support here then at this area in this zone? Maybe I shouldn't have that as a line because it's misleading perhaps to an extent. Maybe I should point out this sort of zone here and say, what happens in this area? What's the potential for us? I mean, because we could still be looking at further downside. Well, you'd really be hoping for the prices, if they do continue to go down the way, to find their footing in at one of these two areas, or you're looking for something bigger. If you look at towards the downside, if you're looking here at this potential area as a turnaround zone, coming in here with the prices at that 54,500 area more or less on an upward moving candle, perhaps then you're looking at managing your risk in and around about this pattern at the top. What could it perhaps be? If that's the lower end of it and this is the upper end of it, of course it's drawn in as a rough kind of guide for us, then maybe we're looking at some sort of descending triangle here on the Bitcoin price. And this goes back as far as the highs in it around about that 13th 14th of March zone. So I wonder if that's going to end up being one of these key dates on the Bitcoin calendar for us in the future. Wouldn't that be interesting if it was? Anyhow, we can see that there's this potential for that type of idea. There's also other ways of looking at this same sort of concept here, where you've got a potential Adam and then Eve here, perhaps, you know, which you could then of course break down from, and all of these sorts of things add up to the same sort of ideology overall, if you're looking at this as a downward potential move past this point for something bigger than the than simply this zone here. And what takes you down as far as is a couple of key areas, and you might actually be looking down towards that 42,000 thereafter. If we're actually to go down as far as that, then and not turn around, then again you're looking for something bigger. But that's the sort of the scale of this at the minute for us, really, across the different sort of time frames. We can kind of confirm that for us as well if we like, looking up towards the 24-hour time frame, seeing that we did quite well overall with this nice movement up the way, and we've had a retracement back down so far, but the retracement hasn't actually come down as necessarily as far as that 52,000 quite yet. So there's this whole danger zone for us at the minute. This is would be the 50% area if we were to retrace the same sort of way that we have done the last couple of times after a big movement up the way, taking out 50% of the prior upward move, you know. So this is what we're saying. If we go down towards this area, then that's maybe the BTFD zone for us, and then you're hoping to see just this really sort of turn around fairly rapidly after that, I would imagine, a la what we've seen recently. So is it now or later? Well, that's going to come down to you. Could you be shorting it in this area as well? Well, that's another question. We can bring up some of these old oscillators here and say that we are in for a cross on the 24-hour time frame on the DMI. That kind of follows on from this overall downward slope in ADX, with the DM positive going down the way, both cracking down below that 30 line, crossing over here, not managing to successfully push past the 30 line after having, you know, gone down here into the chop zone whilst crossing, not keeping that ADX above 25, etc., etc. As we look at this period here and say, well, is it just more of this consolidation in a bull flag overall pattern, and we can just stay towards the top side overall if we just look at this and say this is maybe where we find the lows, and that would be totally positive. Then we have to kind of measure our risk accordingly towards the top side if we are looking in that sort of a direction in the face of these sorts of nuances, I suppose, you know, the bearish divergence that we saw at that recent high, etc. So cracking down past these key areas towards the downside spells obviously further trouble that way, and then cracking towards the top side, then, you know, we've got to be hesitant at a couple of key areas, and there's of course decent profit to be had here as we take out that 54,500-ish zone right now, if we are to go towards the top side. And you can look towards, you know, just coming up here and taking back out the previous day's price action for a 5% move on those lows from where we were when we kind of opened up the stream to where we are looking up towards 57,000 at the top end of this. Now that's obviously fairly high risk in and of itself. Just kind of, you know, thinking beyond that currently, that adds on that extra risk dimension for us, knowing that we're below this 236 Fibonacci retracement point just here at 57,500, for example, just kind of underscores the importance of anybody taking any sort of longs from this point to manage their sort of profit taken accordingly as well. Okie dokie. So that's us looked at it on sort of both time frames. I appreciate these are a bit sort of squished. We can see that there was this head and shoulders-esque type movement on the RSI. If we take out the neutral line, of course, you know, not great. This is just what we're looking at. That's the sort of the risk that we've got for us with regards to, can we turn it around at this point? So absolutely we can, and this would then just be like a, you know, one of these shakedowns that we've seen along the way. or of course we know the key areas to really be keeping an eye out for. Now we haven't taken out 54,555, we're just coming up towards that, and now we're sinking back down the way again. So that's just as an example area. Now that's not me pushing my own book or anything like that. I'm not taking a trade off of this. What I'm actually talking about is just that number that we used in all the previous episodes that we talked about all this movements recently in the past. So just jump down towards the 1 hour time frame, and for some reason this is actually lining up. That's why I drew that in there, didn't I, earlier on? So cool. So this is the turnaround aspect for us. That's the risk level towards the top side. We can see it lines up at 236, and then with regards to what we can discover on the lower time frames, I suppose, is are we getting decent volume coming in here with any sort of potential movement towards the top side? Well, there's a decent enough candle there recently here in the last hour, as the police go by. I guess the plunge protection team, maybe that's what that is, getting to work. So can we see this taking out this sort of downward movement trend here that we have on the RSI here on the 1 hour time frame, etc.? Will we see the in the way that we saw the positive trend burn off previously here? Can we see some of that happen in the flip side? For instance, down here on the lower term time frames where we're looking at DMI, you can see this is pushing way up towards that 50 area. Very common area for this to turn around at is sort of its negativity. So are we going to play a sort of a reversion towards the mean move here? Perhaps. But if that's your basis for getting in the face of what's happening potentially at the minute, then totally fine. So then just manage your risk and reward accordingly. So from that sort of perspective, if you're looking up at something like that, as an example, right, cool. And then there's extra interesting dynamics to bring into the picture here. When we look at the Ethereum prices, so not that chart, that's obviously a bit too busy for us. Yeah, this one over here is pretty good. So what we can see, bringing this up the way, actually closing this off, we can see that there was this lack of volatility here, the lack of strength of trend on the DMI showing up very clearly on the 12-hour time frame. 24-hour time frame, not so much, but we did get the white line coming in. Perhaps on the settings that you're using out the box, maybe that's within tolerance there, where it's showing up quite white background. So there's that happening at the minute, and we can see it across the different time frames. So that's interesting to see in the face that we obviously then just happen to have had this pullback down to the 1655. So we were talking about sort of 1666 or something like that in terms of the overall movements in the market. We did see kind of more or less playing out what we spoke about back here a couple of weeks ago. Really, if you remember back the way, what we talked about was that it could come up towards $2,000 and then find resistance and an inflection area here in the 1800s area, and then we could even come back down towards the 1600. So does this now represent that buying opportunity that we spoke about? Well, it could do, but there's a few little things to bear in mind. If we drop down towards the 4-hour time frame, we can see that if I just bring up the price action full screen and zoom out a little bit, you can kind of see over this period of time that that in this zone, we were looking at it and saying, is there like a diamond type pattern here, expressing numerous different ways of saying we need to actually take out our previous highs and keep moving up the way. We're looking here at this area and saying that this is this area of support and resistance at that 1750 zone. It's like okay, but it's not going to actually present anything as a really great level of support when we look down the way and see that, of course, that every time we've moved past that in the past, there's been all these big movements, and that's expressed nicely with this head and shoulders area here as well, at that red line that we kind of had identified as being the key zone to stay above. So have we done enough to have satisfied that? Well, here on the linear chart, I've had it on linear this whole time throughout the episode so far, by the way, ladies and gents. Looking between that high and the red line, this not being overly greedy with its measuring, and popping it on there at roughly around about where that red line is, takes us down to the 1500 1680 area. So 1600, you can see the prices going down to, and then of course, well, we already know that if we were actually to kind of take this for the full move that it could be, etc., and pop it in, then it lines up obviously with where we had our red line at previously on the charts anyway. So that's all at 1550. That could be the future for us. Well, there's a few things you obviously want to see happening to avoid that outcome, and it's spelled out for us here with just to sort of just hit the reverse button essentially, and you're looking at can we then take out this 1760 area. We don't want to see this increase in volume that we're having here not result in some sort of then tweezer type bottom and a takeoff towards the top side. We're seeing some sort of little sort of movement here on the 1 hour time frame, but is it like we've got to see what that is and admit it for what it is, and that's obviously a fairly bearish outcome to a period of consolidation. Nevertheless, there's the potential for us to see a turnaround. Just we're not getting a massive amount of signs for it here immediately. Just we're not getting them at the minute. Now, can it happen? Absolutely, because we come down towards the 50% area. That's a typical area for retracement to come down to again. Popping in the Fibonacci retracement just to double confirm that from that low to this high here. We've just about come down to the 50% area. So pretty close. Well, if we find our footing anywhere in around that zone, then fair enough. But of course, then we could push on down the way, and this is good because we're now, when we looked at it previously, and we could say, okay, so the prices could go up here and then down there, and that's what's resulted in happening. Now it's okay. Well, then what can happen from here? And it's great because we get to see the key areas that we need to take out to actually get that picture. Because if we jump up towards the 24-hour time frame, take all the drawings off the chart, and just see this, this could be anything at the minute. A little bit of flux along the way towards a higher high, perhaps, going up towards that 2200 area could be the beginnings of seeing the turnaround here. And we can look towards these areas and say that if we take out the 1200 zone, then we're trending towards the downside at that point. And if we take out the sort of 2000 zone, then that's just business as usual at any point, really. Now, early signs do start coming into play with this cross that we've had, negative price action, as you can see here. This would then result in the overall kind of aspect of just this consolidation type affair, and that would bring you all down back down to that 1530 area where the 618 is, and that other red line, and the full movement down away from the head and shoulders, etc., etc. That would just be the sort of the negative story. Okay, so the writing's on the wall for that. It's there, so let's just acknowledge that. If we can, of course, break past this on the RSI, then good job, tally ho. Jobs look at things looking a little bit better at that point. Of course, we've got this volatility potential here for us. Kind of just giving the idea that if perhaps we see prices oscillating around about these zones whenever if we actually do push past out of this, because any potential trend that you're going to have at this point is going to be weak, because it's starting off from such a low point, and that it would then need to get past all these other zones before you'd even look back to not revisiting where you left off from anyway. And that's just a little kind of visual reminder for you on that front. And we can see then the last time that we had this happen to us was back over here towards the lower end, just around about that zone where that red line is. So that would be your lift off area from that one. If we did come back down and kind of fulfill the prophecy of this volatility box, then that would see it coming back down towards that 1550 area. Kind of sucks, but there you have it. What can you say? If things turn around, lovely jubbly, we know good stuff, great. How about we close out the day at 1700 and above? Let's do that, chaps. And then if we can then push on past that towards the 1800 zone again and really get back into get into the thick of it, that would be decent, wouldn't it? we can obviously tell that our previous high is going to be right up towards that fake out territory. In fact, you know, the fake out territory extends really as high as $2,000 at this point, but you'd be in a much happier position up there looking at any sort of longs that you had taken at that point. You know, to get there, you're carrying a lot more sort of that risk area for yourself if you want to, but there's ways of looking at this at the minute where you can say, look, if I did this consistently across time, then there's a way of looking at this and saying, well, great, buy entry for, you know, perhaps. It's early days on that front when you can see that just, you know, this little bit here, potential for a move, sure there is, okay, sure there is. We did think it could come back down to these zones. Now what we're seeing here, of course, is that this could taper off just slightly. We could see the overall upward trend, you know, bleed a downward trend that is just moving back into that positive zone in terms of the ADX here in the 1 hour. You know, obviously in place there on the lower time frames. You can see that start to bleed up the way through these other movements, but of course we're still in chop overall there, and all the sort of lower term time frames, and on the bigger term time frames we're seeing this volatility kind of aspect, which could lead to a couple of different, you know, departure landing points. That's that one. Cool. Thanks, by the way, everybody. Good to have you here, Tony. Good to have you here, Swisher. Good to have you here, Will. Good to have you here, K Doc. Good to have you here. Let me see. Oh right, wait. Let me see. Somebody should have. Are we all just hoping that Will finds acceptance in amongst this community so that he doesn't get so he finds some friends or whatever? Is that what's going on here with our Will? Just gonna hide the user on the channel. There we go. Nice one. So there we go. That's handy. Nice one. Now it's easier to see comments that matter, I suppose, right? You were probably just enjoying yourself in there, were you, K-Doc, chatting to him for a wee bit. Good to have you here, Cody. If everybody could hit the like button, that would be awesome. Good to have you here, Market Wizards. Nice to see you, SB. So it's good to have everybody here. And I hope you're enjoying the evening's festivities in terms of this price action. A bit of movement, and it's nice to see. Where are we here with regards to? I feel like something must be going on amongst all of that in the background. Ooh, with Jane, like this same sort of setup, and what we were looking at in terms of the in terms of Ethereum, and discussing what we were discussing just there moments ago. Same sort of idea here, really. You can take everything that we just talked about. Let's, I suppose, look at the delta then in that sense. What have we got? Anything, not even at the delta, just in terms of looking for anything different, just looking and seeing what the lay of the land is in other aspects. Is that going to be coming in there and saying like hidden bearish divergence at that top? Well, that's how that played out then. A little bit of that pushing us down the way. Yeah, it's the same sort of scenario. So in terms of what are the oh well, you can see the consolidation here as well. That's what we'll see across these things. So of course, right, great overall movement towards the top side then between these areas, and we're seeing that there was of course bearish divergence there. Now, we didn't have such a clean head and shoulders type setup there or anything, and we're still moving towards the top side potentially, with the potential for this to still constitute hidden bullish divergence, with what this overall upward trend and that low overall still constituting hidden bullish divergence. But we are again we are kind of close to a point. What are the highs and lows? What's the range on this thing? Obviously 20 lows 20s are bad. We're at 27 at the minute. So that 27 is that price point that we obviously don't want it to see breaking down past. What's all this junk? Why is this even here? So it's dancing on that, doing that Highland dance. That's the sword there, dancing around on that red line, and where the 236 is. Being below here is negative, as we spoke about recently. You can look at this in the same sort of way as you want to look at anything. I mean, it's the same ideology that underpins all of these different types of patterns. If you just take that aspect of can you move, if you move beyond this key area, then I'm going to describe this as head and shoulders. I'm going to describe this as Adam and Eve here, with or what, all the same sort of idea. Now, if of course if the prices go up from there, then great. Then you could look at it and say, well, where's key resistance areas going to be? Because this could ultimately be the descending triangle, etc. If we push down past this low here, then it's too little to call it a flag just after that move up the wave and this huge movement down the way at that point. So you wouldn't say it's just like flagging here, it's just kind of, is it going to resume the downward trend over, that this would then appear to be. You'd be looking at $25. So it's the same scenario as what we've talked about recently. $27 is your best buy price at currently, has been for the last wee while. What we're hoping to see is the resumption of upward movements. Able to take out first like two zones now. It's just kind of nice in a sense. If you want, if you're sort of looking at climbing Everest without any oxygen as being like a great challenge, and that's your sort of mentality in life, then here's something that kind of goes along, corresponds with that, would be the potential for this to break towards the top side, looking up here towards highs at that 33 area again. Wouldn't that be great if we were to go past 29 first off? That's that first thing that you get to that base camp and say, well, we've achieved something now. And it's a bit easier to say, than previously. It kind of looks a little bit different, but that's a clear area for where it could just peel back down the way, and you just have to say, okay, we had this kind of angled wrong, whatever. Push past that though, go up and take out their previous highs, then well, that's great. $31 this time around shows that we're kind of pushing outside of a zone. It's kind of changing the mentality and kind of getting back onto the broader term picture and saying this is great, so long as we don't break down below that level. This is a 3-day time frame, for example, here. Then we're just still kind of on the way overall towards the top side. We spoke at this in the past. Obviously, this is something we wrote in the past. Got the golden pocket, perfectly waiting for the markets to process our new reality. Okay, and that's what we have to kind of now wait for still, is for the markets to process our new reality. So we've had that. That's happened. We also got, it happened again and again. That's starting to think that looks good. Okay, great. Okay, but we're still sort of Neo versus Mr. Anderson, or Mr. Anderson versus whatever, that guy in that fighting thing and the Matrix thing. That's all kind of going on here, that struggle. That's how we will describe that one to end up there. Patrick, good to have you here, buddy. Oh, that's bad to hear about. Well, thoughts will be with those ones there in Colorado right now. That's awful. So yeah, what can you say when something like that happens? Well, thoughts are with them, and let's take a look at Tezos and see if it's any different to what we were talking about before. Let's just try and keep going on, and we can see that this idea of the consolidation is just, if anything, perhaps maybe more clear here with this, after having talked about it for a wee while with regards to the other coins. But overall, we've got this movement towards the top side in a channel looking back the way. This is the 3-day time frame after all, so it takes in quite a fair amount of price action. And if we can stay roughly above the 380s zone, then we're doing pretty good. Now, it's quite saddening to see that the price is at $4, having gone down past the sort of 420 area. Looking back here at the chart, 460 is going to be your next really big zone, like we had identified up towards the $5.15 to get some decent closes up there, really establish it as somewhere where the prices are happy as being, and with the chance to then perhaps break the cycle, do what Daenerys wanted to do, I guess, or whatever with this thing. Now that's a broader kind of viewpoint on this, because as we've seen with other coins we talked about, there's been like huge movements elsewhere in the market. So Tezos, still kind of bumbling around about these zones does, take a bit of getting used to. If, however, it ends up being like one of the subscribers to the channel, sorry that your name, whoever it was that said it, not sure who, if we were thinking about this as being a sort of cup with handle, all slanted up towards the top side within the parameters here of this channel, and then we had this then as being our sort of departure point, if we're able to do something like that, then what it takes you up to is these sorts of movements that $8 as your potential upside, 100% up from where we are now. So that'd be fan-dabby-dozy if this works out as being some sort of type cup with handle ideology that we have here on the slant. I'm not liking saying that overall, but that's what I'm hoping for, and because just otherwise, the question really becomes like, where are your profit taking targets? And your profit taking targets, like we spoke about already, are going to be like those areas down below, but then 570 down to the sort of 515 to then I suppose $5, and 458 has to be the next one towards the top side. And of course, if we do push down past 396, 380, it's sort of conservative profit taken on a short, but you're actually looking down towards 360 really on that one, if that's how you're going to carry it. Now, bigger term time frames, moving averages looking good. Daily time frame, we're just consolidating as we have done, looking to try and see that we can avoid these moving averages crossing and can actually take out those targets. That would be, of course, hunky-dory for us on that front. 4 hour time frame, the picture just is essentially all the same. This is a previous Fibonacci showing how many great targets, of course, that we've had over the course of that period of time. I could just get rid of this one as well, and draw in the picture the two ways, from that low up to the high, where we came down to 618 golden pocket. So since the golden pocket, then what we've managed to achieve is up to the highs up here at 460, and subsequently to that we've dropped down to the 382. Okay, previously on this same sort of journey we did the same thing and went down and touched the 50% area, and right now, of course, that 50% area is going to be coming in there at that 381 area. Cody, welcome to early supporter, buddy. Excellent, thank you so much there for helping to support the channel. That's fantastic. Lets everybody know that we're doing some good content here. Everybody, welcome Cody to the family. Give him a good old welcome there if you haven't done already, and also hit like on the stream if you haven't already. So that's us looked around the markets. Okay, just a quick consolidation on that knowledge drops that we've been doing here. The two different angles that we're looking at in terms of the short and medium term are we in a consolidation phase here, and where we could break out either direction, hunky-dory, or are we in a period of drop with perhaps with the bigger cap coins? And just like flicking back the way the picture's still clear there, I suppose fresh to everybody, with regards to Tezos, zooming on in the way you can see cross here, chop territory, not going to take too much into consideration with that one. The sort of burning off of the negativity in terms of the MACD is decent to see while we're moving towards the top side. Now, of course, this could be then recategorized in this smaller term time frame as a ascending triangle, etc. in here, and we're just doing great. Another tap on that 460 area, and the next destination is that 515, followed by these on areas thereafter. etc. And that's all laid out perfectly with our looking at the structure, and we'll look at that back the way here in a second. Going towards the downside, then taking out the 50% area here on this Fibonacci is bad news. It breaks that lower area, really, pushing past then the 618. Then at that point is much more conceivable, and that kind of starts to look kind of negative from the broader perspective, because the overall chances of us staying in an overall upward trend, etc., and from the broader term perspective here on this, all the way down to sort of that 4, sorry, all the way down to that 4, that's 250 area. 250 area is still conceivable. That's conceivable, and that's what that would take you down to. So when we look towards the link prices and say, wouldn't it be nice if this actually lined up? I guess it did when we looked at it earlier on. Not on this time frame, I suppose. When it wouldn't it be nice if this kind of resolved towards the top side? We know there's two clear areas for us to be taken out. $30, $32. Really, that would be properly nice, as opposed to doing this 27, 29, 31 jig that we've been on recently with regards to our previous highs overall, right? And that would be the resumption of what could then just be a nice movement towards the top side. Big drop off in the volume here, looking down below, just as we've gone towards the top side. Generally speaking, that's been happening for quite a while since we pushed up past $25. So I don't want to see us have to kind of come back down to $25 to get some sort of square up here in terms of somebody's notion, because I would have imagined that would have happened hopefully here previously. In fact, the prices did after all drop all the way down to 21 there at that point. So sort of boohoo, snooze you lose. It would be nicer to be the overall sort of storyline with this one, and it kind of comes into perspective really quite clearly again as you push past those two highs up the way. There are of course signs of sort of trouble where we could then just kind of continue within the vein that we've been in. It would be nice to see this transpire with a movement back towards the top side that continued on up the way. Nevertheless, on that front, and Ethereum, right? Okay, so have we got further to go? Essentially, this overall consolidation that could be mapped out there with that triangle that we can see on the chart would maybe consign, that us to a further period of this lack of strength of trend, as witnessed here with the prices moving sideways within that overall shape. And if we did see further continuation towards the downside, the sort of overall feeling that you would be having at the time would be, are we going for the full measured move off the back of this head and shoulders, which was really in around about that neckline of that red horizontal line that we spoke about, in it around about that 1750s zone. Well, we have moved on down then, obviously subsequently pushing the 236 here. That's going to be captivating most of our attention right up to that $1,800 level for the Ethereum USD pricing right there, and that's what we really need to see us taken out as a sort of first step towards reclaiming some of that lost glory. Looking at those highs, of course, coming down the way here, then we really need to kind of break the pattern with regards to pushing up past them. First couple of targets come up towards those 1900 zones and then the 1950 zones, but really what you're talking about is $2,000, isn't it? It's that round number. That's what you've got to be looking to, of course, on that one. Looking for things like a turnaround on the stochastics here in the 4 hours would be a decent start to things, so long as it doesn't do kind of what we're seeing there in the 12 hours, and then what doesn't really actually even kind of come out to look like it's changed anything around in 24 hours. It would be nice to start to see this kind of really actually kick off up the way towards the top side, and say, no, this is all speculative, that nonsense, etc. Is it possible to do that? Yes, it is. Could that be your best buy point? Yes, it could be. We would rather wait and see things start to look a little bit positive, I suppose, before, pardon me by the way, before we really sort of dive in without, you know, unless we're happy to acknowledge our risk, in which case it's easy to manage your risk at sort of 1650s area. Don't want to be taking out that low of the day. Let that be a nice one. If we out for us, we could see a pullback, I suppose, even further in the sort of the next hour and a half, 3 hours, I suppose, really, with regards to this, maybe coming in and getting that 50%, then going up the way, and that would be a kind of rather sort of glorious series of events. Now, you can't predict the future, you can't see that's definitely what's going to happen, but it would be interesting to see. And given the lows, it would probably extend this out another day, giving us the chance to put us in for a movement up the way thereafter towards that 2040, coming back down to 1850 at that point to re-establish this as having really kind of, you know, found its foot in there, then moving on up the way, getting that $2,500 target thereafter. That would be the sort of your general structure here if you are looking towards the higher areas thereafter. Back over to Bitcoin. Hi King, they will be busy. Complicated. Rocky is much faster than I am, finding my feet and enjoying it now though. Great, that's good. It's a nice chat that's going on there. Alright, Joey, good to have you here. Good to have you here, buddy. Hit the like button so everybody knows that this is the place to be. So yeah, back over here to Bitcoin, and then what lessons do we have from what we were looking at before? Well, we can see that we were moving towards the top side, and this is then lovely to see the strength in this one, which is not really necessarily as visible in terms of this most recent high up the way. Let's put the microscope on that strength then for a second and see that actually, you know, it was bearishly divergent, and what we're actually seeing here is that despite the fact that we've had that high, we're actually coming in for a crossover here on the DMI, with everything just lining up in that sort of ballet currently right now, where we're you know, it's what can you say from that? They're all exactly right on top of each other, you know. You can't predict anything off of that. We're waiting to see how this explodes one way or the other, essentially. And well, explode is maybe a dramatic word to be using, but what we could see is a retrace. And by the way that people feel in the markets when they're trading at these big numbers, especially when they're using leverage, is that you know, that would be wow, fantastic. So the top side area really could be coming in here again at that 66,000, 66, 69, 669, 69 area that we could be looking to if we do push up the way. But of course, you know, that's not looking fantastic. Now, if we do then push on down the way, what would it be? What would it be? And we are talking like, what's the key sort of area? And looking back the way, we can see that, well, bodies closing below the 55k area is not good. We could be in a bull flag. That's still not good for anybody who's like trading leverage. And what we're looking at is, are we going to come down towards the 50 to 52k area from where we are now? That would be your next move, and it would be totally reasonable actually to be targeting 49,000 and something, 49,750, call it. That would be reasonable even within the structure of any of that sort of kind of noise. So 52,500 though is where that 50% area is at. I wouldn't like to see the prices going down below there. I can reasonably justify that happening. That would be an easy enough setup for anybody then therefore looking to long it from here. Is it possible then? And that would be retrospectively, of course, the great place to look back and say that was the time to BTFD, because what you'd be saying is that previously this move was enough to just to satisfy the sort of a nice 50% retrace, and everything then thereafter can move on up the way. And that's the dynamic that we're at the minute. It does offer up decent enough, easy enough to manage risk opportunities for you, depending on your particular frame of mind when you think about it from that sort of point of view. Well, still, it doesn't look It doesn't look fantastic, but it's an opportunity. That's where you go. High risk, high reward, I suppose. Right. Yeah, so is there anything anybody actually wants me to take a look at real quick? Because that's pretty nifty. How far into the stream are we? 44 minutes, and I've done all 4 of the coins and wrapped up and given a bit of the old summary on them all as well. It could happen, Cody. It could happen. It could happen. What we don't want to see it happening, and that's just as I'm kind of describing here with that box. It doesn't really matter what particular time frame you're looking at. Overall, this zone is not a nice one, but it's possible and it can happen. And the key thing about it all really is that it doesn't go down past that 52,500 area. As we kind of spoke about overall in the past already, now it is conceivable that it just goes up from here, and what we're looking at is sort of 54,500 as being a easy enough kind of zone to think about, just as a rough area. I'm only using that number specifically because I have because that's the number that I said that the prices could go to and stuff, and talked about so many times recently in the past, and it saves me from having to choose a specific number. But it could be anything for anybody that's trading this at any type sort of zone here. And what they're really looking for is to see, can the prices come up towards that sort of 57,500 area, and then beyond that, acknowledging that what they're doing there is taking on that additional sort of, there's different aspect of the trade after that point, and that's fair enough. But it's a different risk profile that you're taking from here to there is over 5%, and that particular 5%, should we see the prices turn around, is your easiest 5% move on the table. But you kind of are having to risk a fair chunk in sense of what's going on here, and that's just the way that is, right? That's just the way that is at the minute. But if we do push on past it towards the top side, and you're able to, at any given point catch one of these moves, it does actually take you up serendipitously to where that green line lines up there. Funnily enough, up there at 66,000, 65,000. That is fairly serendipitous. That. Wonder why. Yeah, anyhow, that's just coincidental. So yeah, that's cool. That's where we are with that. Let's check the chat. Picnic.network. I think you must be talking about 1. Yes, let's have a look at 1. Picnic.network, by the way, Kevin. I believe it'll be what you're talking about there. Let me just bring up the 1 chart. Let me be the one, girl. Let the reason be harmony and love and such. So what we have here is a nice upward trend. Jolly good. Well done. Good showing. 1. What we talked about last Friday on the stream was the potential for us to continue towards the top side. What have we witnessed? We have indeed witnessed that movement towards that top side, actually coming all the way up here towards 19. Fan dabby dozy when you think about it, having been in it around about, where were we doing it? Where was it? I don't know. Anywhere down here, anywhere down there. So whatever, up 50%. It went up from the worst time you could have been watching the episode at around about, I suppose, etc. Fantastic. Was nice to see. Now that was obviously kind of, asking a lot at the time. It was saying what we needed to see happen here was a movement past our previous highs, which would take us strong enough up past our here to burn off the divergences, etc., that we were seeing appearing on the charts. Now in terms of the RSI, we didn't actually manage to achieve that properly. In the MACD we have indeed. In the DMI we've done a decent stab at it, but not quite. But wow, great, fantastic, nice to see happening. Can we actually get more of the same? We're seeing this the MFI there is giving us, you know, a slightly mixed picture in terms of are we divergent, etc. Between the last two highs, we're not. Likewise on the RSI and the MACD, etc. And this last movement between these two highs, fantastic. It's when you compare them between the previous ones that you actually start to kind of, and same with DMI and stochastics, it's when you start to run into some issues. But fan dabby dozy, and it's all about, you know, is the strength of the trend going to continue, and will the trend be your friend? And this with regard to the smaller enough term time frames here with the 4 hours, and looking at the green 18 period exponential moving average, you know, it's still, party is still good, it's still going. That we can still kind of celebrate that, so long as we really kind of really stay above that 14.5 cents area. Fantastic stuff, given that we're here at 14.9 at the minute. Really, we don't want to see the prices pushing down. If you were looking for a sort of stop on that one, I suppose, then if you're already in this in profit, which I dare say you probably should be, then just any stop anywhere in profit would be fine on that one. Where is a decent measuring point? Well, looking at this, let's just kind of smooth it out, go to a bigger time frame and look at it. Well, let's not be too harsh on the price movements overall. Give it a bit of breathing room. Yeah, coming from there to the highs, and there's the 236. So if we do then start to see that story playing out well on the 4 hour time frame, then we'll see, well, that'll be expressed by prices moving past and then closing few 4 hour candles, etc., above the 15.7 cents, 158, right, 158 area. That would be kind of my expression that front. You could be looking at it a couple of different ways. 1650, I mean, it really, and 1750 are obvious numbers as well, from looking at this in terms of just how the prices have oscillated. Like where's this here, sort of 1750s zone, 1800s, where's that, 1550s, 1500. So so yeah, this is all just kind of, it's a question of whether or not we actually push on down the way. If we push on down the way, things could just kind of, you know, go sideways for a few days, etc., or for a day or so, or 2 days, I guess, and you could be looking at this maybe having some sort of legs to it in terms of a crossover. It's on the 1 hour time frame, and I'm not so keen on that idea. Instead, I'd rather see this actually manage to recover towards the top side. The ADX then hopefully actually even getting out over, you know, overtaking the ADX, and I'm seeing a real sort of explosive move, popping it onto log instead, and seeing then that there's this just this casual nice movement towards the top side in the 4 hour time frame, drawing in our early sort of ideas in terms of how you'd manage your trades in around these zones. Yeah, there's divergence on a couple of oscillators between a couple of areas, but weekly time frame, we've gone so high on that one. Let's just check it versus Bitcoin again. Right, we didn't quite manage to make up. We got to 786. Oh, well, cool, that's interesting. But we didn't manage to make it past and on up the way. Still some legs to go on this one before it even comes up and takes out its this wick. But that's such a big wick. That's such a big distance. Only really need to push up a small portion here to get that value versus Bitcoin. Well, it's great. It's kind of we're at the races at the minute. We're waiting to see which one will have the impetus to get going first. Let's just check out the total charts here. This is of course the total market cap. This nice little bit of consolidation just there at the top. Just this little area here has given us the opportunity to see kind of, you know, we're at the races on this one. Oh, came down to 60, 96 here on the Bitcoin dominance chart. Looking at that, bang on with the 786 here at 60.96 right now as we look at that one. Well, interesting stuff overall here for this one. We spoke about this on Friday. We're kind of seeing, would they be able to take advantage of it? Now we saw some altcoins like OneCoin certainly absolutely do that and rocket up the way. Great stuff, and we got our move on that one. Fantastic. But we haven't managed to do the same across the board in terms of all the other altcoins quite yet. But we're doing a really good job. Can we see this? Can we see this story continue for a little while longer? This is a key area for us. Will we see some altcoins retake it? Because we're not seeing the story. It's an interesting story for some of them. Let's just bring up some examples. For instance, Cardano also suffering recently, down at a 111 at the minute, having been up as high as, up here recently at 150. And it's at 111 right now, having gone down 6% on the day. So you're seeing that story, but in the face of it, long-term time frame, weekly, nice bullish move across the board here, no divergences, etc. Yes, we come back down to the 40 area on the DMI here. What a fantastic overall move this has been, as you can see. Let's just see if we need to go down towards 30 again, that's okay. If we can continue towards the top side, I can see that this is obviously getting a little bit more stretched, and that's fine. So we have had a pullback. Is it subsequently actually has it been enough of a pullback for us to satisfy what we need to see happen in here? I.e., does that could it overall constitute a good buy? And we can see that this Fibonacci is drawn in from that low on the 14th of September 2020 up towards the high here, and the Fibonacci then lines up with a 236 in there at $1.15. Call it $1.16 if you want to round it up. So that's where we are right now. It's like, this is a significant period of time, and pushing down past these areas is not ideal, but we have just recovered from this low. We were up at 150 down to the just 98 cents, up again. Can we actually manage to avoid taking out this previous area and just trending towards the top side? It doesn't need to be as parabolic as it was before. The 18 period will catch up the way with a little bit of continued movement up the way, hopefully overall. But what we would see here is, in terms of these moving averages, is them actually coming closer together and cutting down the potential of that sort of volatility overall, as expressed again here with how wide the Bollinger Bands are. If we can actually manage to maintain everything moving towards the top side, when I say how wide the Bollinger Bands are, don't be confused. The Bollinger Bands are extremely wide there on the on Cardano, like as wide as they've ever been. So in terms of if that's a big old whale scooping up the plankton and getting a big old lunch on the go here, yes it is. Let's see, we want it to close up its mouth and stop that now and then continue towards the top side. Can we get that? And it's looking at it and saying that 60 cents is where we can see the prices go to. We have to be realistic and say that is of course where they can, but let's hope that what this is overall is, in terms of the potential for continued positivity, the potential for it to be good, doesn't require a higher low to come in, which is any worse than this last couple of times that we've done it. And that lasted in this period from November all the way to the end of December, like a couple of months here, and then prices shot up the way. At this point it was a month and they shot up the way. Now we've actually, it was the 22nd of February that we first came in for that high, admittedly 15th of March, not long ago, that we were back at it again. But this period of consolidation has included a fair amount of a bear trap on the go, a bull trap on the go here at one point at that most previous high, and that's the weekly time frame. So on the 24-hour time frame, what that actually looks like is this potential for a cup with handle type formation. It's not very broad, not a long time frame, doesn't comply with the rules of it at all, but just no, it doesn't. I'm just trying to give the idea that, look, you know, if so long as if we break above that 150 area, jobs are good in, right? Could see typical true range movements thereafter, and just typical ones from the recent past. I've seen the prices going up 50 cents. Looking at that then beyond, and you're talking $2, and it's, you know, kind of really doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. But at the minute, you know, we're asking, can we resume that upward trend or not? And this is expressed on that DMI, and as you can see here, the negative one, well, it really wants to get going. It wants to, so we know that it really wants to get going. And in terms of the bigger time frame, well, you know, still plenty of potential here on the broader term scheme of things, which has been bearishly divergent. Actually, bearishly divergent is a bad time. Is you can also just short it from here. I mean, we're right at that area right now, right here, right now, right? Are we? No, we're not. We're 4 cents shy of it. Still, you could be shorting it from there. Easy to manage your risk, easily done. Profit taking target coming down there at 85 cents would be a nice enough area. You wouldn't even need to go down for that full 50-cent retrace for you to have made, yeah, 20% if you took it down as far as 90 or something or so, right? No, yeah, great, fantastic. Not difficult maths, but there you go. Challenge for me sometimes. All right, Scotty boy, good to see you. Aye, wee bit late tonight, man. A wee bit late tonight. So I am. Jonah Dav, thoughts on why it's falling? Why is it falling? Oh yeah, do. Well, that's a good question, you know, and it's kind of like, well, why was it rising beforehand as well? This is a dynamic that happens in things that this is price discovery. People talk about price discovery as when things are in all-time highs. It's just like the economics, you know, talks about supply and demand, and the price of anything. It's really hard to say what the price of anything at any given time is. We all acknowledge the price of everything changes all the time. There are some things that you kind of think about as being fairly reliably priced, such as Snickers bars and washing machines. But you know, we know that the price of everything is kind of changing all the time, and it's just what anybody's willing to pay for it. So that's one of the things. Now, actually, now, I don't mean to be demeaning about things. How about we take a look at Harmony One, for example, then, just to kind of give you a narrative to spin on it, because I appreciate the need that people have who are people. I appreciate the human need, let's call it, for to question why and be understood and heard doing it. Okay, so fair enough, right? Here's Harmony 1. We've moved up so well, 2-day time frame. We actually pushed outside of the Bollinger Bands, statistically speaking, when prices have gone that far beyond what they've normally gone in the past. Then, you know, that's where the prices are then 95% of the time they're going to retrace. If you want to think about this then from some sort of point of view that would help explain that, it's kind of along the lines of if you ran a kebab shop in the middle of Glasgow and KDoc came in every night for a kebab and you charged somewhere between sort of £6 and £10 for a kebab, but occasionally you turn to him at the till and he says that'll be £14. You can be pretty sure that if you did that 95% of the time he'll tell you where to go, right? It's kind of like that. You kind of know, like, the price of anything could potentially change, but you know, and within a certain bounds it's going to be maybe okay, but if it went to a certain other price, not so much. And that's measurable in one of these ways here, like with the Bollinger Bands. You can see that they came back down here. The kebabs went up to sort of £7 at this stage, and it looked kind of, he had a bit of a sort of bad expression on his face, and they dropped it down to £6.90, and he seemed to smile a wee bit, so they just ratcheted the price up to £8 the following week. You see what I mean? So it's just like this is the sort of that explains to an extent why prices could then drop down the way. So, well, that just happened to us in the 24-hour time frame. You can see largely the same concept, where here we are, and you know, just so long as enough people in the market smile, then hopefully the Harmony One kebab shop will continue to increase its prices and eventually make it up to like 20 cents, 30 cents per kebab. and you'd say, why is it fallen? Well, from one particular answer to that, so it's one narrative, there's an answer for you. Let's flesh it out a little bit for you as well, because that doesn't necessarily do it, and I appreciate that. Okay, what we've seen is in recent times, just bring up prices full screen here. What we've seen in recent times, and this can apply to any given asset really, if you see this happening, is that the prices have moved up with great enthusiasm and have had a big volume at those points, and then they have gone sideways and down for a duration of time which is much longer than the period for which it went up, certainly in terms of looking back how you might feel about that. Then it goes up again and sideways, etc. And at the same time, we see the volume dropping down the way here between these sections, for example. And overall here, as we can see, the volumes have dropped down, but the prices, while they dropped, and this is the logarithmic chart, it puts it into perspective, they're only dropping down similar amounts to what they've dropped down in the past. And while they've been dropping down, they've had a similar sort of structure to the downward overall price, but it's actually been increasing overall. And we can see that the moving average is up here at highs, like it has been a couple of times. So it's like, over the period of this amount of time, the people who were pushing the prices up spent the same amount of money between these time frames here, and that's decent to see. This is the 4-hour time frame, bringing up the oscillators and just kind of looking at that from a couple of different perspectives. This bit here, not divergent, looking back the way it was divergent. Okay, is there enough enthusiasm in the market? Maybe we need to let it see how it goes. And just from their attitude, from the point of view of somebody who really does want to see it go up and has the power and the capital at their disposal to do that, for instance, what they would want to see is a degree of sort of capacity within the markets to float themselves, to a point. And then thereafter, now of course there's other dynamics, like market dynamics, that exist with regards to the Bitcoin pricing, and can we get past certain areas? We've seen a pullback in Bitcoin, and that brings in a degree of hesitancy in the market. Why Bitcoin prices pulled back? Well, Bitcoin prices pulled back, having gone in for highs that just weren't really followed up with the enthusiasm that we really needed to see happening in the markets to prevent the sort of overall cascade downwards that would be setting up a number of warnings to people in the markets, where we really had the most positive at this stage was this potential for hidden bullish divergence on the charts at this previous low and at the 16th of March as we came up towards that high. And then of course was that high was bearishly divergent, and we fell on down the way, pushed up, and we did put in a high here, but actually kind of came in with a sort of touch of hidden bearish divergence as well, experienced on the MACD, not on the RSI as it happens. And then we've continued to go towards the downside, and now we're looking at saying this is your best potential buying opportunity right now for the here and now, but it's got these risks attached to it as expressed with this overall pattern drawing that we've got on the screen. And we're acknowledging the big increase in volume that brought us down towards this zone, and just saying as well, if you split that down the way that actually the last couple of candles has accounted for a good solid half of that. We've seen the prices move towards the top side so far, so a lot of that buying has been sold into, if you will. Maybe that's good in a regard, if we actually then see the prices moving up the way. So put that into perspective, this drop down the way came in with less selling pressure. And what does that mean? Well, what it means, if you're looking for that narrative to actually exploit the charts to the sort of nth degree to really get that narrative, is it means that what you were looking at was that despite the fact that a lot of people were willing to push the prices down and then came in here and let that happen, and made that happen, a good chunk of people also just were willing to let that happen in order for the prices to come down to a certain price point, where then they themselves then decided to perhaps start purchasing at that point. And now we're waiting to see the result of that expansion and contraction in the price. What you could say is this is the contraction following on from the previous expansion, and it's just the natural oscillations that happen in price discovery, which is sort of the economics as experienced with supply and demand. And what we've looked at here is looking at the demand side here versus the supply side just here. So while there is this upward movement, it's being supplied into as expressed by the lack of upward directional price action, while this downward movement, relatively speaking, moved further percentage wise in price action with less volume, seeing that this was more of a supply driven event, where this sort of supply then just kind of went down the way and they just let this happen, that people weren't willing to buy into it. So it was the buyer supply dropped down the way, as we can see then with this smaller negative candles here, and there was then of course the inverse of that here expressed on a lot of selling action, and maybe that's a good thing. It depends, right? It depends, is that a good thing or not? This is like how and really this is as far as I'm going to take you in terms of your TA, because at this point here it comes down to you choosing what strategy that you actually want to use in terms of risk to reward. And there's so many different ways of doing it. Just be consistent and do it 20 times or so, and then decide whether or not you want to do that one again afterwards. And it's, all the information that you would really need is here, and if not, give me a shout out and I'll try and sort it out for you. Danny Morgan, that's funny. Wish it was so. I am tired. What time is it now? We're looking at 23:13. I'll not stick around for the close of the day. Right, but anyway, hiya, says Scott. Hiya, 3000 trend. Good to see you. K King, I like the site. Got that? Yeah, it has got that follow the cursor thing going on. £4.50 a kebab in Glasgow. You're all overcharged in Edinburgh. Aye, right. That's quite remarkable, actually, that the prices are still that different. There you go. So, right, that's it. Cool, nice one. So, as far as I'm aware, we've done it. Has anybody got any questions? By the way, join the Patreon. It helps. It keeps the channel looking to the future. Patreon.com/rocky.outcrop. There, I shared it there. Join the Patreon, helps the channel going into the future. It's great. It pays it forward for other people who it keeps me motivated to keep doing the content here. I want this thing to be a success. I know the content's value is extremely high. But that's cool. And not everybody has to. That's the whole point. That's why I say it's paying it forward. So if you do that, then you're massively appreciated, hugely so. And what else is there to say about it? Well, that's it really. And then I don't know. Share the videos with your friends. Hey, how about that? That'd be cool as well if people were to do that. It'd be nice to see some new faces around here. Get 19 concurrent viewers right now, 21 likes. Well, I am here saying I'll maybe I'll take it towards the end of the show here, but let's just see if anybody has any sort of questions, and you can get them in here. Now, if you want to be able to do that at any time throughout the week, really, and have a chat about stuff, then the best way to do that is by joining the Discord and being a Patreon member. And that means then, of course, that I'll communicate back to you to the best of my abilities to help, and we can discuss things in the education discussion thing. And the more people that do that, the better. I think there's that sort of inertia that goes along with, you want everybody to be asking questions because it'll trigger something else, that maybe makes you think, etc., etc. So get some of that on the go. But we obviously, I think everybody appreciates the fact that we need to have more people in there to make it, kind of worthwhile. So join the Patreon, make that happen. That would be awesome. If not, well then I'll go jump off a bridge, and that'll be that. Right? Just kidding. Wouldn't do that. Also, I'm not a financial advisor, by the way. So there's also another disclaimer. Long GRT. Oh right, okay. So let me see. Andrew Gibson said he long GRT at 152. I will be tuning out soon. I just want to make sure that it's all gravy. And we've covered everything that's interesting, because I'm interested in this stuff too, and we've made good timing so far. So let's just see how Andrew Gibson's faring. He longed it at 152 and he wants us to pray for him. So you did that. Yeah, that's not like That's not ununderstandable. That's not non-understandable. Looking at what you'd have been seeing in the run up to this, you've got like this bullish divergence at these lows. Thinking, okay, that's decent, that's nice. You got this DMI telling you at this point here that the prices have got a really strong chance of coming back to where they departed from. Bang, up they went, came back down the way again. We actually bounced off the 382 at that point. Then we did push on up the way again thereafter, putting in highs that were then not bearishly divergent compared to these, that previous section just there. And then sank all the way back down again. Bang, all the way down. Just got trapped, I guess, in a way at this point. Got trapped. Well, how would that have looked then, I guess? So, but have we, we've struck that 50% area. We talked about this, I guess. I mean, what I would have been saying, I don't know, I could go back and audit my previous streams when we were talking about this one recently enough, but this is in the sort of no man's land area, waiting to see if this pushed one way or the other. And the fact that it's come down towards this 50%, it's not gone bang onto it, has it? But whatever, that's fine. It's gone pretty low. The fact that it's come down here is maybe kind of something that it needed to do in a way. That's just the 1 hour time frame, 4 hour time frame. Yeah, so it was in no man's land and it came down here, and its significant low previously was over here. It's only really had this one significant high since. It's coming in here for a higher low. That's how that would be expressed on the 24 hour time frame. Hide all that junk. Yeah, this is actually, we want to see it pulling back up the way just another few cents so we can get above this at 160. Doing alright, matey. Wait, so it was at 148. When did we start speaking about it? Should have. Let's go 5-minute time frame. Aye, it's done alright while I was talking about it. Fair enough. So, yeah, we don't need to pray for you. Just use risk management, it's all good. Hey, Rocky, I'm wondering how long weekly bearish divergence usually takes to play out. Lol, sorry if you already answered. So, it's kind of like a warning sign where you're not necessarily guaranteed that even necessarily will play out. What it's showing you instead is that there's this warning against what's going on, so that's maybe a better way to kind of think about it, instead of really looking for it to have a play out, because it's not really going to have measured moves, etc. Now what you can do, of course, is combine it with things. So if you're looking at bearish divergence, Ethereum chart, Ethereum USD, 4 hour. So we had a high. Is it going to get noisy? Yeah, cool. But you get the picture here, right? Actually, 4 hour Ethereum USD chart. Low, high, low, high, low, high, all of which are upward trending. It's characterized by higher highs and higher lows. At this end period here, we can see that we actually got bearish divergence on all of the oscillators. On all of the oscillators. The DMI as well at this point came in for a cross. Now it was a negative cross. It did get followed up with tenuative upward strength here. It wouldn't necessarily have been wanting to short it necessarily based off the back of this, but it doesn't looking very good. That's all it's kind of you were saying there. All this stuff here that you're saying, like, so we've got bearish divergence. How long will it take for this bearish divergence to play out? And you're kind of looking at it and saying, well, if for instance, if for instance this is some sort of diamond pattern, then we're going to come to the apex of it over here. So that's how long it will take to play out, perhaps, to answer your question at that point. And then subsequently you see the prices moving down the way, or this is the play out of that's how long. You can answer that question. You can kind of finish that sentence yourself, because the prices move down from this point here. So there's your answer, perhaps. you know, but then perhaps you're looking at it like a head and shoulders and saying, well, we had this inflection here, came down, pushed on past it, and that was the play out of that. Ways of kind of then saying is that other ways that you could look at it is you could say that we had the potential. You want to see actually the prices really actually, you know, do something, price action first, and that way then you can have a confirmation on it actually being bearish divergence, you know. So what you're talking about is historical stuff, because obviously you confirm it's even actually existed in the first place, was what I was kind of going to make that point, but there's not much point in making that point, right? So this was like hidden bullish divergence at this low, and it played out in a sense that we got bearish divergence that came in here, and then what we actually see was this subsequent high. You know, we're getting this bearish divergence across these highs. Then the next high was bullish, right? It was higher than these two here, but ultimately it was lower than this one. So what we had was the bearish divergence between this point and the end point. In between it had bearish divergence, but it didn't play out because there was this hidden bullish divergence here, which saw the prices move towards the top side, ultimately coming in for what was then a bigger term time frame bearish divergence high. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about stuff in the episodes. Talk about this I've mentioned this exact same thing as this scenario here on at least one of the other charts that we've looked at in terms of what's going on right now. But I didn't explain it in terms of that because, you know, I'm doing these things for free. Right? And I mean, it's already got to be right. Give me a like. Anyway, give me a like. Okay, that's cool. There's other dynamics at play always which are interesting, such as with regards to the money flow index that I've been kind of looking at from time to time recently, but nothing that I'm going to talk about right now here. Okay, cool. That's cool. Okay, right, so let's just see then with the chat. Everybody seems to be happy. I'll just do the reverse roll call. Let me bring up the end screen. That's it, ladies and gents. I think I've got everybody. Don't want to leave anybody short in terms of shortchanged in terms of hoping to get some question answered. Now, if you do want to get your questions answered and all the rest of it, that by me anytime, you can get access to that sort of resource in the Discord. And thank you so much to Kevin for tuning in this evening. Thank you so much to Swisher. Thank you so much to Trade Spotting, to Danny Morgan, Crypto Planet, Andrew Gibson, Scott. Good to see you, Scotty boy. Cody, Jonah, Trey, 3000 Trin, Joey P, Navanethan, SB, Adam Crypto, Cody Locke, by the way, thank you so much for having become a member today, an early supporter, having hit the join button on YouTube. That's really appreciated. Thanks so much for that, showing your support to the channel. Let me just look up the way here and see who else I've met. Oh, hi, Patrick Pellegrino, good to have had you here. Mr. Dangerous, I call him, even though I call him that because I read his name wrong the first time. Yes. And Tony, good man, good to see you, good to have you here, buddy. He's got some delivery food, so hope you have enjoyed that, mate. And probably got grease all over your phone trying to watch me and eat at the same time. Just eat, you should have just eaten. And then count me on the rewind. Let me see as well. Market Wizard, good to have had you here this evening. Dom Underhill, good to have had you as well. That guy Will P ended up getting himself banned. I think the mods and everybody else was having too much fun with him and just let him here stay on for a while before banning him. I don't know why, but I did it in the end. Great, nice one. I hope I didn't miss anybody. If I did, then I did. Well, there you go. Thanks everybody, have a good night, and you're welcome, Tradespawn and everybody else. Thanks for tuning in, really do appreciate it. And y'all stay safe out there now, y'all. Oh, Join that Patreon. Oh, good idea. Why?